Okay, we're here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. With today's live stream, there is not going to be a 5-minute timer. You're going to see a lot more of these kind of more or less impromptu live streams coming from me moving forward, just because there's a lot of information going on out here. And with the elections coming up really quickly, a lot is being thrown on my plate. I just want to get this stuff out as quickly as possible. So we're just going to dive into today's information. And before we do that, please drop a 1 in the live chat if you can hear me clearly, and then we could keep it moving. And like I said also, or I shouldn't say like I said also, but I'll probably give this kind of annoying intro of why I'm going live without the 5-minute timer on, and probably like maybe 4 more live streams like this. And then at that point, you will all have gotten used to this. Okay. So I see the ones coming in. So now let's get into today's show. Thank you all for joining me today. Please make sure you hit the like button if you have not hit the like button already. Please make sure you share this video out. And if you are new to this channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you find these conversations and this information informative and fruitful. So now let's dive into today's information, right? What I want to do really quick is that I want to play you this video of Jamal Bowman sitting down with Tiffany Cross back when she still had her show on MSNBC. And now this video I've played for you guys in the past before, where Tiffany Cross asked Jamal Bowman specifically, what is it that the Congressional Black Caucus actually does for Black America? And many of you remember his response, but for those of you who don't, I'm going to play this for you right now. And then you let me know what you think. Did he answer the question or did he avoid the question? Let me know in the comment section once I play this video.
I had dinner with a friend of mine, and he was saying that there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect because he's like, you're here in D.C. and everybody's so important, and you are talking to members of Congress and administration officials. It's a disconnect between your conversations and what's happening out here in these streets.
Yes.
So how do we bridge that gap? Because I don't feel disconnected from the streets. Like, I'm you, and you are everywhere I am. You are. Mm-hmm. But some people feel like, this politics and policy, it doesn't impact me. It doesn't touch me. And when I look to the Congressional Black Caucus to do something, what are they doing? How are they supporting me? And I always try to explain what they're doing, but maybe you can do a better job.
We need to be out there in those streets.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I always mention Yonkers, Mount Vernon, the Bronx, and New Rochelle when I go on mainstream media is because I want people in my district to recognize there are Black folk in my district who are struggling and have been historically struggling. So I make it a point to go into Eden Wall projects and to go into the Black communities to really listen, learn, and understand what's going on. Plus, these are communities that I come from, so I feel more comfortable there. I have to also mention this about this particular legislative conference and to the point you just made. There's classism in the Black community, and we need to talk about the classism in the Black community, and we need to address it head on. Just because I got degrees or I go to a certain church or I'm a part of a certain fraternity or I went to Ivy League or private school, it doesn't make me an elitist. Right. It doesn't make me more privileged or someone that can look down upon, especially our people, because our people still suffering. If we don't uplift them, they will never be uplifted. So we got to deal with the issue of classism. One way is we might want to change the dress code a little bit for the next conference, because I don't want to see brothers and sisters from the hood who have never been to this conference before. We need to bring them to the conference.
Yeah, I think that would make such a difference, because if the streets don't feel like Congress comes to them, then come to Congress. You're a big enough voting block and a large enough, harness your power, that it should matter. They should feel welcome.
We're incredibly powerful as Black people.
If we weren't, they wouldn't be trying to take our votes.
Incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Once we start to harness that and leverage that, then we can help this country become what it's meant to become, and we're not there yet, obviously.
And some people think the Congressional Black Caucus is the caucus that settles everything for Black people, but a lot of members represent districts that are majority white even. It just happens to be this caucus that tries to fill in the gaps in the conscience of the Congress.
So that does it for that clip right now. There's a lot to unpack there, but I'm not going to do that right now, because that's something that I've done in the past before concerning this clip, right? The only thing that I want to focus on right now is the fact that Jamal Bowman did not answer the question at all whatsoever. And you all caught that in the live chat. He completely avoided the question, danced around it, so on and so forth. He just didn't answer it. And he didn't answer it because, we all know that the answer to that question is that the Congressional Black Caucus does absolutely nothing for the Black community. It's just a fact at this point. That's just the reality of what is. And this is precisely why he couldn't answer the question. But one other thing that I found very interesting was him trying to explain away how the Congressional Black Caucus is not an elitist group. I found that interesting because that is precisely what the Congressional Black Caucus is. They are the Black elite overseer class whose sole purpose is to keep the political temperament of Black America under control. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And the perks of being part of the Black political elite is that as long as you can keep Black Americans under control, you will always have a nice and comfortable position within the system. And you can occasionally apply for a higher position that will personally benefit you, and that we, in this case, the Democrats, can hold up as a symbolic victory of Black progress in America. And then we'll run around shouting, and then we'll run around, I should say, shouting about how we've selected the first Black woman to the Supreme Court, right? Or how we selected the first Black woman vice president. Now we all we all know that Kamala Harris is actually an Indian woman raised by an Indian family in her Indian culture. But, for the sake of argument, we'll go with it, right? She's a Black woman. So as you can see, this becomes a win for everyone except for Black Americans. For you, nothing changes, right? But for the individual Black politician, he or she wins big, right? And they win big every time. And for the system as a whole, now we have another token of symbolism that we can sell you on, right? To keep you voting blue no matter who. And that is precisely what's currently happening right now in the state of California, where I live, right? So what I want to do right now is that I want to get into this article right here, and I'm going to pull it up on your screen for you, or pull it up on my screen, I should say. And this article right here comes from Politico, and it's titled "Newsom Faces Push to Name Black Woman to Senate If Feinstein Retires," right? So let's get into this article right now. There are a couple things that I want to unpack here. But like what I was describing earlier is precisely what's happening here currently in the state of California. So let's check this out. Here's the subtitle right here, and it reads, "No Black woman currently serve in the upper chamber," right? Let's go in. Uh, Governor Gavin Newsom provoked fury when he didn't appoint a Black woman to fill the Senate seat held by Kamala Harris, opting to choose longtime friend Alex Padilla instead. Now, 2 years later, he's facing similar pressure as the state's senior senator, Dianne Feinstein, recovers from her San Francisco home from shingles and could be forced to step down earlier if her health worsens. Black political leaders are making it clear that they remember the governor's public pledge to appoint a Black woman to the Senate if Feinstein resigned, and are floating names that include Representative Barbara Lee, who is already running for the seat. There is no Black woman in the Senate, so the commitment was heard across the nation, said Assembly member Lori Wilson, chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus. There are Black women in Texas, in Georgia, who are holding on to. If there's a vacancy, we're going to get a Black woman because Governor Newsom said so. Okay. Now listen to the language here, right here, right? This was supposed to be highlighted. Of course it's not, right? Black political leaders are making it clear they remember the governor's public pledge to appoint a Black woman to the Senate if Feinstein resigned. Look at how they're only looking out for one another, right? They didn't say the California Black populace, right? California Black California residents aren't asking for this. These are so-called Black political leaders that are asking for this. These are so-called Black political leaders that are doing the best that they can, right, to lift up one another and get one another in high position. As I state in the title of this video, they work harder for symbolism. They work harder for themselves than they do for actual Black progress, than they do for actual concrete transformative legislation. That's why you see here in California, and particularly here in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken, I know I'm not mistaken, we have the largest homeless population in America here. But if I'm not mistaken, which I know I'm not, again, over 50% of the homeless population here is Black, right? Despite the fact that I believe in Los Angeles, I think the percentage of Black Americans in Los Angeles it's not even 10%. It's something really small, I believe. It might be 9 or 8. I'm not really sure, but it's a really small number. And I believe in California as a whole, it might be like 5%, right? So we make up about, like, we'll just say 8-9% of the population here in Los Angeles, but make up 50% of the homeless. Okay. Yet we need a, Black woman to be elevated to the Senate if Feinstein can't continue to do the job. And this is the ridiculousness of it all. When has it ever mattered in American history for us to actually have Black faces in high places, right? It's never mattered. The evidence shows us that this has absolutely never mattered. Now, here's an interesting fact that you may not be aware of. I believe that I spoke on this once before, but I want to bring this up to you right now because this kind of proves my point that it has never benefited us just to simply have a Black face in a high place, right? Because currently, as we speak, as it pertains to Black political elites and Black faces in high places, as it stands today, there are currently over 10,000 Black elected officials in the United States in total. Over 10,000 throughout the entirety of the United States. There are over 10,000 Black elected officials. That's more officials. There are more Black elected officials in the United States than there are Latino elected officials and AAPI elected officials combined. Okay, let me read this off real quick. And this is coming from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, right? And it reads as such. The Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies was founded in 1970 to lend a hand to Black leaders as they traveled the uncharted road from civil rights activism to political establishment. The history of the Joint Center the history of the Joint Center has not only reflected the progress of African Americans made since the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, but also mirrored the nation's political and socioeconomic progress over the last 5 decades. When the Joint Center first opened its doors, there were 1,469 Black elected officials. Mind you, this was in 1970. So in 1970, when they first opened their doors, this organization that assisted in taking civil rights activists and ushering them into political life, like legitimate political life as it pertains to politics and being in office, right? There were only 1,469 Black elected officials in the United States. Now, currently, as of today, 2023, there are over 10,000. Over 10,000. Okay. Now, let's compare this to the number of Latino elected officials in the United States, right? And this article here comes from Axios. It's called Latinos Are a Flourishing Focus on Ballots. And I'm just going to read this one sentence here. I don't need to go through the entire article, right? But it reads as such. More than 7,000 Latinos held elected office in 2021, a 75% increase since 2001, a report by the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials found. Okay. And now, as it pertains to those members of the AAPI community, I don't have the exact number for you. It's a very low number, and I have the article saved somewhere on this laptop. I just would have to find it because I spoke on it before where they gave the exact number. But the percentage that I'm going to give you alone says more than enough, right? And this here comes from another political article titled "Asian Americans are the least likely to hold elected office." And this is how few AAPI community folks are in elected office, right? A Tuesday report from the Reflective Democracy Campaign, obtained exclusively by Politico, revealed that AAPI members made up just 0.9%. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Revealed that AAPI members made up just 0.9% of elected leaders across all levels of government, but 6.1% of the population as of mid-2020. So across the nation, members of the AAPI community make up literally less than 1% of elected leaders. How is it possible that combined there are more Black elected officials in office across the nation than there are Black and AAPI members combined, yet Latino elected officials and AAPI elected officials are able to get more done for their people than the Black elected officials are able to do for Black Americans? That's the question that I'm going to leave you all with. How is that even possible? I guess I'll answer it for you right now. And it's quite simple. It's because they're looking out for themselves and themselves only. Our Black elected officials, our Black elite class, sold out Black America a long time ago, a very long time ago. Yet in this article here, they're trying to convince you and me that we desperately need to have a Black woman in the Senate seat, right? Despite the fact that the evidence has shown, and like I said, my new phrase is don't believe me, believe the evidence. The evidence has shown, given the fact that by 2053, the median wealth of Black America will be zero, the evidence has shown that Black faces in high places mean absolutely nothing. Now let's carry on. I'm going to read a little bit more of this article, and then we're going to close this thing out. A Senate vacancy in California would create outsized implications for the 2024 Senate race and a series of fraught political choices for Newsom. The governor would face enormous pressure to move quickly on his decision, given Democrats' a razor-thin margin in the Senate. He'd also have to decide whether to appoint a caretaker or wade in the contest by naming a contender like Lee. Feinstein, who plans to retire after next year, said Wednesday she will return to the Senate as soon as her medical team allows. Though she didn't specify the date, in the meantime, she called for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to pick a Democrat to replace her on the important Judiciary Committee. Newsom has made no public statement on the politically thorny issue in recent days, as some lawmakers openly call for Feinstein's resignation. When asked if he intends to honor his promise, a spokesperson from the office directed Politico to a previous statement, right? Now, I'm going to skip that paragraph there, and we're going to just come down here. But Lee, one of the most prominent Black women in California politics, seems to be garnering the most support for the appointment. She is running against fellow Congress members and formidable fundraiser Katie Porter and Adam Schiff, I believe the last name is pronounced, in the fierce competition to replace Feinstein in 2024, a race that is already creating tension within the California Democratic establishment, right? And Reinhardt, thank you very much for your super chat. I appreciate your contributions to the channel. And all contributions to the channel are definitely always appreciated. Thank you very much for your support. Now, as you can see here, I have this portion highlighted in blue that says, but Lee, right? They're highlighting, but Lee, or I'm highlighting, I should say, but Lee, one of the most prominent Black women in California politics. What does that even mean? Can somebody answer that question for me? What does it even mean for someone to be, or in Lee's case, the most prominent Black woman in California politics? Somebody please explain what that means in the face of data like this, right? And this comes from Duke University. This report comes from Duke University. And what is it titled? It's titled The Color of Wealth in Los Angeles, right? Now, white households in Los Angeles have a median net worth of $355,000. In comparison, Mexicans and U.S. Blacks have a median wealth of $3,500 and $4,000 respectively. Among non-white groups, Japanese have $592,000, Asian Indians have $460,000, and Chinese have $408,200. Households had higher median wealth than whites, right? So all of them, I kind of read that a little truncated, but the Japanese, Asian Indians, and Chinese, their households had a higher median wealth than whites. All other racial and ethnic groups had much lower median net worth than white households. African blacks, $72,000. Other Latinos, $42,500. Koreans, $23,400. Vietnamese, $61,500. And Filipinos, $243,000. Can somebody please explain to me what it means to have a statement like this? But Lee, one of the most prominent Black women in California politics, what does that mean for her to be one of the most prominent women in California politics in the face of information like this, right? Where you have Vietnamese coming into the country having a median net worth of $61,500 versus U.S. blacks with 4,000. You have to ask yourself, what does that statement even mean? One of the most prominent Black women in California politics. It means absolutely nothing. Now, some of you who are probably apologists, right? Democratic Party apologists, Congressional Black Caucus apologists. You're gonna say, "Oh, well, she's not in the congressional district of Los Angeles, though." Despite the fact that they say she's one of the most prominent Black women in California, you're gonna hold me on the technicality that she's not in the congressional district of Los Angeles, though, right? She's holding down the 12th district, which encompasses Oakland, California, right? She's in the Bay Area. Now, mind you all, she's been the congressional representative of the 12th district since 2013, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I looked it up a while ago, right? So 10 years now, she's been holding it down as representing Oakland, California. Well, let's check this article out right quick and let's see how she's doing, right? This article here comes from The Guardian and it's titled, "We're Being Pushed Out, the Displacement of Black Oakland," right? So let's dive into this. I'm just going to read this article here, right? Ground zero for displacement. Oakland was a critical destination for African American families migrating from the South in the 1940s, a home to a Harlem of the West, jazz and blues scene in the 1950s, and the birthplace of the Black Panther Party in the 1960s. The government, however, systemically devastated the city's Black communities throughout the 20th century. Officials constructed freeways, train tracks, and federal buildings that literally destroyed homes and tore neighborhoods apart. Federal redlining practices embedded racial inequality and segregation into the city's development, with banks allowing wealthy white communities to flourish while denying home ownership to Black families. A corrupt policy agency brutalized and jailed innocent Black citizens. My question is, when does it stop? Said Reverend Thomas Harris III, the longtime pastor at Pleasant Grove Baptist Church in West Oakland. While a typical service once brought 75 to 100 congregants, the number has dwindled to as little as 25 Black families have been pushed out of the area, right? And let's hit this last paragraph right here, and then we're going to close this live stream out. While Black residents made up nearly half of Oakland's population in 1980, that figure dropped to 28% by 2010. And if current trends continue, could fall to 16% as of the next decade. Some have been pushed far away. Some have been pushed to faraway suburbs or central California, towns hours away. Others have returned to the South. With all that being said, once again, the question remains, what does it mean to make a statement like this? Barbara Lee, one of the most prominent Black women in California politics, what does it mean in the face of the actual evidence that I presented to you? It means absolutely nothing. Black so-called political leaders pushing to have Gavin Newsom, right, keep his promise to put a Black woman in the Senate. Once again, the evidence shows this means nothing. Black faces in high places mean absolutely nothing if they're not actually working on your behalf. And sadly enough, that is the current situation that we're in. Unless we're able to get our own people into office that actually represent us, or if we're actually able to, put super PACs together ourselves locally and actually buy off politicians, this is going to forever be the case. It's going to forever be the case. And it's very sad and it's very unfortunate. But this is the current state of Black politics in America. This is what's happening. These people are only looking out for themselves. At least the Latino politicians and the AAPI politicians, we can look at the evidence and say they're definitely looking out for their people. But we're the only ones that are out here without political representation. So with all that being said, that does it for today's video. Please make sure you hit the like button. And before you run out of here, I literally have another live stream coming right up. Literally in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to be doing a live stream on this topic right here. Oops, let me remove the super chat out the way. President Harris by 2026. That is coming up next. That is coming up right now, literally in 3 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to end this video out, right? And make sure you stick around, because as soon as I end this broadcast, a preview window is going to open up immediately that'll direct you straight to this live stream. So I'm going to keep this going. The live stream is coming up right now next. So hit the like button. And then Grant said, no. So we're going to get into more of that now in 2 minutes. Okay. So hit the like button and I will see you guys literally in 2 minutes. Just follow the preview window that's going to come up. Don't leave just yet. Follow the window.